Welcome to this project video. In this video, we'll learn how to trace a hand-drawn image into the Glowforge app so it can etch and possibly cut out portions of this design. So on the Glowforge dashboard, on the top left corner where it says Create New Design, I click that and select Trace a Design. I have already placed my picture in the Glowforge. The picture needs to be drawn with a dark color marker or pen, and the paper itself needs to be pretty clean of folds or eraser marks or something like that. The image trace action will kind of follow you through step by step. So the first one is we're going to drag a square around the artwork we want to trace. I'm trying not to get any of this other stuff. I don't want the wood in here. I don't want these holes in this paper because it will pick that up and it will think that that's part of the design, which it is not. So I'm going to stay pretty close to my design and let go. And it will show me an example of my little snail friend here. And it did a pretty good job. Now, if you scan your image and it's a little bit on the light side or a little bit on the dark side, you can play around with it a little bit. You can hold Control on your keyboard and hit the up arrow to lighten it. You'll see it's losing a little bit of detail there. Or you can hit the down arrow to darken it. And when you darken it, sometimes you get some noise from the paper and the shadows that might have been in there. So that's not a very good design. So I'm going to go back up until all that noise is gone. And my snail looks perfectly fine just the way he is. If I wanted it to cut out part of my design, I click on the white space and it will follow the lines around that area. So I'm clicking on the outside of my snail. You'll see pink lines come around my snail and my flowers. So this would cut out my snail and my flowers, which is maybe something that you would want. I don't want to cut out my snail. I want his design and flowers to stay all together. So I'm going to hit Control Z to make those pink lines go away. And so I'm happy with how this artwork scanned. I don't need to lighten or darken it. I don't need to add cut lines. So I can hit Place Artwork on the top right corner and it will place my design in the space and I can move it to the side. So there is my snail. Here's my original art. So now I need to take my paper outside of the Glowforge and continue working on my design. So here's my happy little snail friend that I'm going to make a lot smaller. So I'm going to click and drag on one of those white dots. And you'll notice right now that my snail is red, even though on the top left I already have my material selected. We'll go how to choose a material a little bit later in the video. But if you have your material selected and parts of your design are red, that means they are outside of the Glowforge area where it can engrave and cut and things like that. So he's too far out. I need to move him more in. He'll turn yellow, usually a bright pink. And there is my little snail. And right now this would just engrave my snail. This is a very big piece of wood and a very small snail design, so I don't want to just engrave him and keep him on this big piece of wood. I want to cut him out, but I just want to cut him out of a simple shape. To do that, I go to the top middle bar and select the Insert Shape tool, and then I'm going to select Square. And right now, if I try to change the size of my square, it's going to change proportionally. And I don't need all this empty space above and below my snail. So if I want to change it where it doesn't change both sides at once, I have my square selected, which means if I click over here, you see how there's no dots around it. I click on the square, you see all these dots around it. That means it's selected. And in the bottom left, there is the ruler tool. And right in the middle of the width and height measurements, there's this little chain. And if I click that, it will unlock the chain and I can move my shape unproportionally to fit my design. So I'm going to double check my settings and make sure everything's okay before I send it to the Glowforge. If I look to the left here, it says my snail is going to engrave, which is perfect. Square is going to cut, which is also great. However, we never want it to cut first. We always want it to engrave our design first. So I'm going to click my snail and hold and drag it to the top. You always want it to engrave first because if it cuts first and then there's that little bit of space between our material, it might shift a little bit and your design might be off-centered or not where you want it. So always select the engrave functions to go first because the Glowforge is going to follow from the top down. On the top left, it says medium basswood plywood. I'm using the wood in the Idea Lab, and that is the type of settings we want for our wood. If you're using a different kind of wood or a different material that is not available in the Idea Lab, you bought it and you purchased it, brought it in for your own project, that is fine, but you will need to look up setting suggestions on the Glowforge community forum page. Certain materials are a little bit easier to cut than others. The Glowforge is not strong enough to cut all materials, so make sure you do your research before you purchase a specific type of material. My settings are all correct, so now I can hit print on the right hand corner, and it will give me an estimated print time for this project. Before I start the Glowforge, I always have to make sure the ventilation is set to 10. We have an external fan here at the Idea Lab. If you have any problems, please ask a staff member and they can help you set that correctly. And then you can hit the blinking blue button on the Glowforge and it will get started. So this project's going to take me about 8 minutes to complete. That's it for this project. Thanks for watching.